Well, we get many of these reviews from these high-end reviewers, like we get Cycling Tips and we get Road CC, and we get another guy who's David Arthur. Now, I don't want to pick on David Arthur because he likes to be a little bit flamboyant with his English accent and uses some jolly words when he's talking about the bikes. But my criticism of all of these different reviewers is they use very generalized words, like, for instance, phenomenal, or what a package, or more dynamic to ride, more focused, and my favorite, jolly fast. But what do all these generalizations mean, and how can we actually get some information from these reviewers that's really accurate? And when they say jolly fast, what does that mean compared to other bikes or in general? So let's roll the intro and let's have a little bit of a talk about the differences between bikes and what these really mean. Well, these generalizations to me personally don't really mean too much, because when we compare bikes, and this is coming from the manufacturers when it comes to speed of bikes, we tend to look at bike advantage. They say more aero, which is another common one they use, and it will be between, say, a minute and a minute and a half faster than another bike in their range. Now, that'll be over a 40-kilometre distance, travelling at 40 kilometres an hour. So what we're really looking at is quite a small difference, and we're probably looking at around about a kilometre faster that we're travelling. And my question is, can you really feel that when you're riding a bike? When you say jolly fast, can you actually feel that those differences that you have on the bike? And is it really meaningful to the purchaser of those bikes when body position, handlebar setup, your drop from your seat to handlebars makes more of a difference to how fast or how much that you get that in that kilometre a bit more, really adds up in the whole aerodynamics of you on the bike and the bike itself. Now, we use some other words like more focused and more dynamic, and I really think these are completely meaningless, because the only thing that you get, say, more focused and more dynamic, more focused to what? More focused to a race bike, more focused to endurance bike, more focused to a gravel bike. And it depends what you need to clarify what the focus is. And I just watched a video by David Arthur, and he was talking about the Canada, which is an endurance bike. Now, when you say jolly fast, does it mean jolly fast for endurance bikes, or does it mean jolly fast compared to all bikes? You know, is this really approaching something like a Pinarello F or the Cannondale System 6 or one of these bikes? Because it kind of doesn't really fit with the fact that we're talking about an endurance bike. Are we comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges? And this is one of my big criticisms about how they use these generalizations to somehow sell the bike or sell that product, because let's be real, they're semi-sponsored. They're either given the bikes to review or they're giving some financial cost to review that bike and say positive things about it. And even if they're not getting paid, if they say negative things about the bike, they're not going to give them the next model that comes out, because they go, we don't like that reviewer, and they're not saying what we want them to say. So where does this leave us consumer? Because we get all this paraphernalia that we get from these reviewers, and we get these words like feels fast, more dynamic, more compliance, and you can really feel the aero characteristics of the bike because it feels fast. And they don't really do any comparison to what other bikes, or say what they're comparing it to. Comparing this bike, just say it's the Cannondale Synapse, to another endurance bike that's on the market, and comparing to those other bikes, this does feel fast. But then you have to really say to yourself, what does feel fast mean? Because anyone who's been riding for some time, you can have the slightest of tailwinds and you'll just go, oh, this bike really feels really fast. But then when the weather conditions different, you go, oh, this bike doesn't really feel that fast. So you can just have that slight tailwind and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of wind around, but that could give you maybe half a kilometre on the bike and it makes it feel faster. So the environmental conditions of the day have a big impact on how the bike may feel. So these sorts of feel that they're giving you, these words about dynamic, focused, jolly fast, they're not a very good indicator for us who's a consumer who's watching these videos and trying to make heads or tails whether I should spend, say, $10,000 or £10,000 on a bike, because that's a significant amount of money to drop. And it's very, very hard to decipher what they're saying when they use these words. So in my opinion, you need to be really kind of on the back foot when it comes to a lot of these reviews, because what they're actually saying is they're saying that they're giving you a perception of the bike. And let's face it, generally they're saying they're fast, and generally they're saying that if you can feel the aero, it feels more compliant, whatever. But they don't tell you what group of bikes they're associating it with, and they don't give you any real figures comparison. So what we really need to be looking at is when we watch these reviews, if they say anything the slightest bit negative, we need to really think to ourselves, that's actually something that's really big that's negative, because I've noticed with a lot of these reviewers, watching them over the years, that they like to soften the negatives and promote the positives of the bike. And then later on, you get to hear when everyday people like me get the bikes or get access to the bikes or purchase the bike. You know, that's obviously hard for us type of guys, because we have to put our hand in our own pocket and we can't run around buying $10,000 bikes every month. But different people buy different bikes, and there's quite a lot of people out there doing reviews. So you find someone who's bought the bike and has ridden it for some time. Then you get to hear the real issues with them. Oh, this failed, that failed, or there was a problem with the handlebars, or I changed them, or whatever. And that's when you get to hear the real truth, the real negatives. So with these new bikes that come out, you need to be very, very careful what you take from these reviewers. Now, I know if we sort of like a brand, we tend to be swayed a bit more. So we need to be a little bit careful when we're in those shoes. If we particularly like a brand and we've had that bike before and we've had a good run out of it, you've got to have a little bit of an open mind when you hear people reviewing and talking about the latest model. Well, anyway, guys, I just wanted to sort of point a bit of a stick out there at these reviewers, because I do think that they, what do you call it? I don't want to use the word exaggerate, because to them it might actually be true, but you really don't know how they're coming to that conclusion in their mind and what their actually group of comparison is. And I think that's where the reviewers could be a little bit more focused. They say, yes, like David Arthur just said with his Cannondale Synapse, it's jolly fast. But is it jolly? What's it jolly fast to? Give us some perception of what you've compared it to say it's jolly fast, and that would give us a lot more information on that group of bikes that we're looking at buying, which is an endurance bike, to say, hey, this one's a better bike than another bike. Well, anyway, guys, leave your comments down below. You probably watched a lot of these reviewers and bought bikes off these reviews. Give us some feedback of how accurate they think they are, and what's your interpretation of these generalizations that they use in the bike industry. And have you bought a bike and you've been disappointed with it because you followed a reviewer, or the opposite, you've bought a bike and you followed a reviewer and it's been really the gun bike that you've bought? Okay, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it, and I will see you next vid.